Showing up. I know that there's many challenges in your way with this new venue, which is TechSoup's original headquarters, and with the baseball game, and with therefore the lack of parking, and with the nasty meter maid situation that goes till 10 p.m., which sucks, and with our lack of parking. All of these things are in your way, and yet you're here. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You are at TechSoup. For those of you that don't know, you could look behind you and you'll see there's a little board of our history that's kind of shoddily designed, but nonetheless, we are a San Francisco-based nonprofit. We are a technology organization, so we are a nonprofit. We help other nonprofits with their technology needs. We do that through a number of different programs. One of the programs, our main program, is a product distribution program where we engage the big donors like Microsoft, Cisco, Symantec, Adobe, Intuit, and hundreds of others. And they donate to us, and we pass the donations along to nonprofits for a small admin fee. And therefore, the nonprofits who are validated by us as 501c3 nonprofits get those products at 5% of retail, as in 95% off of retail. So really good deal. You can get all sorts of products for like, $5, $10. But it's not like Amazon. You don't just put in your credit card and buy it. You have to be approved by us because it's more like a grant, because we are actually a nonprofit. And that social enterprise within this nonprofit funds all of our other programs. One of the programs is an educational program, which is content and community about technology. That's the program I used to run the community and social media efforts in. And that was the program that kind of was the parent of this community, although I am actually the parent of this community. And I've taken it to my new program because I am the mama of this community and benevolent dictator of the online community tribe. And my new program is called Caravan Studios. Caravan Studios is our newest division at TechSoup. And Caravan Studios is different than anything we've ever done before, because what we're doing with Caravan is we are actually building tools for nonprofits. So for the first time, we're building apps for nonprofits. We're doing it through a number of different ways. We're talking to nonprofits. We're running these focus group kind of situations which generate ideas. And then we're taking those to hackathons. We're going to volunteer developers, and we have one that is complete in the marketplace. Does anyone in here have a Windows phone? Crickets, huh? Bummer. Well, if you know anyone with a Windows phone, it's the first. We launched it in the Windows marketplace because Microsoft was our main sponsor for the app. We will be changing it to HTML5, which means it will work on all phones very, very soon. It is called Safe Night, and you can look at the hashtag SAFENIGHT to learn more about it. And that app helps crowdfund hotel rooms for victims of domestic violence who cannot get into a shelter for any number of reasons. So it's a very cool app. Second app we are almost completed is called 4 Bells. And 4 Bells is an app that helps deploy volunteers on an urgent time-needed basis, so known volunteers. So whether that's urgent transport or it's urgent other means of deploying a volunteer, that's what 4 Bells does. And that one is currently in construction and will be released soon. So almost 2 apps. We just launched a few months ago. Follow at Caravan Studios, because at Caravan Studios is now my team. And I am at Suze Boop. Oh, that's what we forgot to do, Crystal. We forgot to do our little board with all the Twitter handles. Crystal, that girl Crystal is her Twitter handle. And she will right now tweet everyone, all the volunteers' Twitter handles. But I can point them out. Our speaker is at Scav, S-C-A-V. Our video guy, oh, I forgot there's a video camera. Hello, who's looking online. Our video and tech assist is Zach, who is at Time Doctor, volunteer extraordinaire. Mark is at MD, what is your Twitter handle? MDFW is his Twitter handle. Letter M, letter D, letter F, letter W. I'm Susan, but my Twitter handle is at SUZBOOP. It should show up here any second now. What else? We got, who else do we have in our volunteer corps? We have Ravi at the door, but he doesn't have a Twitter handle that I know of. We got Scott Moore, at Scott Moore as a volunteer. Who am I forgetting right now? Mia, at Mia Kasi, isn't it? Yep. And all my other fabulous volunteers. The hashtag for this, there you go. So you guys can look at this. This is very cool. Tweetbeam. The hashtag for this meetup is OCTribe. It stands for Online Community Tribe. Other things I wanted to mention to you, our sponsors. Thank you to the Iron Cactus and the Creamery. So if you guys want to tweet out, thank you to them. You can look at at my tweet, and you can see how to spell their handles and thank them. And 25 Lusk, the restaurant, also donated the cheese and bread. And TinyCo, Scav's company, helped pitch in for the drinks. I am going to talk about a tech soup job, and then I'm going to open it up for other people who want to talk about jobs. So first of all, I want to talk about there is an online community senior manager position here at TechSoup. It is a position I know a lot about because it is a position that I created a long time ago, and then I was in, and then I hired for, and now I'm no longer on the team, and they're hiring to replace Michael DeLong, who now just, as of a couple days ago, went off to work at Microsoft. So, which is cool. So that job is going to be doing social media and community for TechSoup. It's a huge, awesome job. I can talk to anyone about it. I posted it to the Meetup group. If you guys are all, and you all should be, go to meetup.com/OCTribe and sign up, because then you'll get our, Michelle can't make it. If you will all get the notifications for this Meetup group, and I'm happy to talk to anybody, honestly, about the job because I know a lot about it. It will be managing on the ground and online communities. Super cool job. And the hiring manager is not me. I'm going to be one of the interviewing community, but I'm not the hiring manager, but Chital is. And she wrote me some bullet points to read to you. She said, and she's not succinct. She's not a tweeter, so she writes a lot. But I'll read it really quickly. You will be part of a great team working to help nonprofits around the world learn about and use technology to make their work more effective. You will work with incredible volunteers in 30 countries around the world who organize meetups and technology trainings for nonprofits in their local communities. You will have free reign, mostly, to plan campaigns, build and manage TechSoup social media channels. You will be one of our main voices in the world. You will lead by example and help nonprofits understand how to use social media and amplify their message and increase their reach. You'll be the internal social media expert, and you'll get to work on projects with corporate CSR programs, funders, technologists, activists, and educators to increase tech capacity of nonprofits worldwide. It's a mouthful. It's a great job. That's on right now. You can find out about it a number of different ways, but you can also just go to TechSoupGlobal.org and look at jobs. If you can't find it for some reason, let me know, and I'll send you the job description. There's a free stuff table in the back. There's a couple online community building books. There's some software. There's some extra large T-shirts. We have a Facebook group, which is the San Francisco Online Community Meetup Facebook group. Next month, I believe, I hope, and she said yes, so I'm going to hold her to it. The speaker will be Megan Murphy, the community manager of Twilio. Super smart girl, and it's going to be a great one. I'm pretty sure it's going to be here. As long as nothing bad happens, then this feels okay, right? You guys, we can make the chairs better. It's not as good as the last place, but we'll make it work. It's easier than going to the other place, which is someone else's office. For now, let's try to have it here. The only other thing I want to say is, show of hands, who's looking for work? Okay, everyone look around at these smart folks. Show of hands, who is looking for not full-time careers, but gigs as well, because there's people that are just looking for a career. People are looking for gigs. So, okay, good to know. Show of hands, who has a job to announce in the room? You want to come up here and announce it?
Hello, my name is Tasha, and I've spoke to a couple of you already. I'm not sure if this is working, but okay. Is that better? Great. So I am an account manager at scripted.com, which is a startup company just down the street from here, actually. We're on 6th and Bryant. And we are definitely looking for a writer community manager. So just a quick background on what Scripted does is we connect freelance writers with businesses who need industry-specific writing. So essentially, the writer community manager that we're looking for will be working with the creative types writers and also businesses to make sure that we can find those sort of unicorn writers who can be very eloquent about technical topics, and also just the writers who are creative and eloquent about things like art and design. So yeah, that's an awesome company. I've been there for a year and a half now, just about. And if you're interested, I definitely encourage you to look at scripted.com.
Go ahead.
I don't work at this place, but my friend is looking for her boyfriend's company, which is YC backed. Y Combinator backed company called Boosted Boards. They make the lightest weight electric vehicle, which is basically just a longboard. And they're looking for a community manager / PR support because they're going to be shipping a bunch of boards soon. So yeah, longboards on wheels. And I think it goes like 20 miles an hour. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, that's it.
So I actually have a couple gigs. So the people, can you raise your hand again? I know I saw you, Heidi, and Mark, and Scott. Who else? You and you. So I have a couple gigs here and there. So I will just find you guys after and talk to you and see who would maybe be a good fit. And that's kind of what we do here. So if you have, you have social media needs for contractors or jobs, that's what we do. So the way that the format, because I'm seeing some new faces, which is super fun, goes is that we will have our speaker. He will speak for about 40, 45. Is that right? It's up to him. We'll see. It's up to him. It depends on how long we can all hang. Main point of new operational handling. The front door cannot be held open for longer than 20 seconds because it is held open for 30 seconds. There is a deafening alarm that will not be able to be turned off, way louder than my voice, like insanely loud. So when you are leaving, even if you've had a couple drinks, get out. Like hang out in the front doorway and then get the hell out. Oh, and when you leave, go to 25 Lusk and have a drink at their bar because it's really cool. I just went there today and saw the space. Their bar is beautiful, and they have specials, so whatever. Or go down to Bar Basic if you want to spend less money. I didn't say that. I think that's everything. Oh, yeah. No, but I mean, I would like to have us out of here at a reasonable time, like 9 o'clock, just because I have to go home and all that, and so do all the volunteers, and I'm going to, exactly. So that's a good time to all carry the conversation to the bar. Okay. So other than that, I was just going to say a unicorn community manager. No, Eileen, you're watching this. I don't think anybody said they were looking for a unicorn community manager. Did anyone? A unicorn? Oh, unicorn writers. Okay. I didn't know what that was. I'm looking for a unicorn. So the way that these things go is that it's up to the speaker. I prefer it if you guys don't interrupt the whole time because then he can never get through his presentation, but it's really up to him. I'll decide whether I want to moderate. If somebody's like heckling and being annoying, I'll grab the mic. And now you know that if I do grab the mic, you might have to take it personally. So other than that, you guys, I'm going to introduce you to Matthew Fairchild, who is one of our favorite volunteers and also the community manager at TinyCo. So give it up.
Yay. Thank you, Susan. Like, I can't stress how just happy and humbled and proud that I am that I'm up here just because OCTribe is incredible. And if not for Susan and OCTribe, like, I don't know where I would be in the industry right now. Like, I've been coming to these for a couple of years, and actually the best compliment that anybody's ever paid me was a couple of OCTribes ago when I said, oh, hi, my name's Matt, and they said, oh, Matt, are you Susan's intern? I had to tell them no, but that I appreciated the compliment. We'll be ready. Woohoo. So y'all will get to see my shadow a couple times because I need my notes, and also I get to be my own slide clicker, which is also the best job in the world. But hi, I'm Matt. I'm a community manager for TinyCo. I head up the community team there. We're a small but strapping team that enjoys biting off more than we can chew and then figuring out what amazing things to do with it. And when I was thinking about what do I want to talk about, I was talking to my team. I was thinking about like what is it that at TinyCo we stand for as a community company, and what my team was always talking about was that they were so proud of their ability to give feedback to the product teams and of the role that they play when trying to ground the game teams, ground the product teams, and provide context with real players that are interacting with the product on a daily basis. And thinking more about it, it crystallized for me when listening to Emily Castor from Lyft talking a couple of months ago, where she was showing all of these amazing user stories while talking about growing the Lyft platform. And that was it, because what we've been building at TinyCo is heavily centered around this concept of stories and framing and feedback. And we spend a ton of time looking at the right way to present stories, the right way to remind a company that the community and the players exist, and try to provide that context and move people almost on a daily basis and remind them of why it is that they come to work. And as one final disclaimer, I call users players. I can't help it. It actually was an intentional change back when we first got started because our users are players, and it becomes a framing thing that if it humanizes them a little bit more, it gets a little bit of action behind it. But you can replace that with users, you can replace it with people, you can replace it with basket weavers, whatever applies most to your product and whatever helps you get that frame across. Zach, if I stand over here, does that work for the camera? Ha. I feel like I should be lobbying for this. But thank you. So this is probably my only divisive slide. Like, I expect rioting and anger and the most furious tweets that I've ever seen, because this is a picture of the community department at TinyCo, and we very strongly believe in this and defend it, even when there's a lot of passionate members of the community management community that will partition customer support and social media away from it. But at TinyCo, we go for all three. We think that a community department can be heavily involved with social media broadcasting, with the actual community management and community building, and the customer support. We tell everybody that comes in, there's going to be a lot of customer support, a lot of email, and we really strongly believe in this because customer support provides grounding, and it's also the most powerful metrics that you can attach to a community. It helps you backdoor a community department into a company as well, because if a company already has a customer support department, that's a clear need. Like, you can't, once you're running a consumer product, you need people to answer those emails. It's a clear thing that you can go to a manager and say, we need to hire more people for this. And then if you hire the right people and set the right standards, you use that to then start expanding the footprints within the company and increasing the influence. And once you have all three of these, then you get to have everything. You have the reach of a social media page, because you will see, we've looked at metrics for this. I'm going to fudge them a little bit, but you will see 10 to 20 times more people on, say, a Facebook page than you will on a more dedicated community property like forums. So that gives you the broadcast ability. And then you have the granular one-on-one interaction and customer support that exposes you to a completely different group of people, because invariably those that are on your forums are not your general audience. Now, they're an important audience. We love them very much, but it's a much smaller cross-section than somebody that is emailing the first time. Like, we found that more than 2/3 of people that do write into a customer support department are writing for the first time ever and will never write in again. So by looking at this, you get much, much more feedback and context that you can then provide to the product teams. So that's the community team at TinyCo. But what gives me great joy is when we talk to other people in the industry or even other people in the company, and they say, wow, you guys have the best players. And that's true. our players are better than anybody else's because they obviously have very good taste. But it's also, they're everybody's. It's everybody's user base. There's companies with very similar demographics. And in working in a couple of different companies and in building communities for several years, even on a volunteer basis, you start seeing the same stories. And we realized at TinyCo that everybody has these stories. They're out there. That once you set up the pipelines to draw these stories in and then rigorously set up the feedback processes to share them with the company, it can galvanize the company and really prove to people why you have a community department in the first place. And it helps you underscore the point that if you're recommending product changes, why those should be made. And so when people tell me, wow, you have the best players, I say, those are yours. Like all of this. So after this, I'm going to start sharing stories. This is actually our dear former coworker Rose, who is now in Michigan. And I actually know two people in the audience separately through Rose that I never expected to see in the same room. Y'all are awesome. And yes.
It's so not important for me to interrupt, but I really want to say, please don't hesitate to eat while he's talking. Like, I know that you guys are really polite, and I saw you like tiptoeing in. I just want to reiterate, this is a casual meetup. Feel free to get up, get yourself food and drink while he's talking. We won't be offended because that's just, I just wanted to say that. Go ahead, sorry.
There are two rules of OCTribe meetups. One is please eat everything or else I have to take it home afterwards. The other is it's okay to be on your phone the entire time because that means you're tweeting something. So this is a gift basket that we received from our Tiny Zoo players for Tiny Zoo's first birthday. And we didn't ask for it, we didn't prompt it. We were just in there talking every day and sharing our stories, putting a human face on the company. And when we said, hey, it's Tiny Zoo's first birthday, suddenly a gift basket shows up. And it's our HR people just now know that weird mail should go to the community team. And we posted on the Facebook page, and this is the type of thing that people say, wow, like your players are nicer than others, but it happens once the mechanisms are there. And this made me think of some other framing exercises that we've seen happen. And a kind of formative moment for me in trying to put together TinyCo's community practices was when I was at an office party, and our director of operations was having fun, like we were being social, and she with very good intentions said, Matt, you have the worst job at the company. And we hear this a lot. I'm sure you've heard it before. Like, I cannot believe you deal with those people every single day. And we love receiving that respect, but I always found it a little diminutive. It's belittling because we don't. I immediately turned to her and said, no, we have the best job at the company. And I launched into a story that I had heard that day about somebody that was playing our game in the hospital while recovering from brain surgery. And she was stunned. Like, nobody else has this direct and closed feedback loop, and that's what these stories provide. Eventually that started proliferating, and I believe we have a friend of Benny's here that Benny once said, Matt, I love that you get closed feedback, that you see a direct result from the works that you do in the form of compliments that people pay you in the community. And I believe that our responsibility as community managers is to then share that with the entire company. Because when you're a developer or an engineer or a product person, it's very easy to see users and players as them. And it's not malicious, it's not wrong, well, it is wrong, but it's not something that's misintentioned, it's just what happens when you don't have that kind of direct feedback, and this is what community can provide. So that leads to, I'll go through these quickly, but these are the incorrect assumptions. And it drives me crazy whenever anybody says this, that you can never make the community happy, they're going to be mad no matter what you do, and that gamers are jerks. I originally had a much worse word up there than jerks. I'm going to hold off from that for now, because also it's just not true. I mean, like gamers are a very passionate community. Anybody that works in the games industry does know that it can be a very volatile place. But at the same time, it's not a closed thing. Gamers can be anywhere from a 20-year-old male in college to a 45-year-old mom playing a game. And all of them enjoy games, even if they don't call themselves gamers. And if you have the right mechanisms in place, you can just prove these things false over and over and over again. Regarding the second part, also false. Now, sometimes they will be mad because it's news that will make people angry. But if you're doing the right daily work, you can actually share sometimes terrible news with the community. Like, we've had instances where we have had to remove popular features from games, but because of the daily work that we put in there, players thank us. They say, like we're just honest with them. We're saying we're removing this because we want to fix it and then put it back in when the game is in a better state. And they're like, that's great. Thank you for telling us. We can't wait for it to be back. And then they start distributing the message elsewhere. So this leads to, those three misconceptions led us to address three questions. One is, how do we make community, both as a team and as a player base, more visible to the entire company? How do we go about this mission to remind engineers and product people and marketers of why they're coming in every day and what they're building? Then how do we provide insights? Because we do have a direct thumb on the pulse of actual people. We have the email, the Facebook, and we can just go out and say, hey, what do you like about the game? What do you dislike about the game? How do we present that in a grounded and stable way that is actually relevant and that people will read and understand, and that doesn't make you sound hysterical? That because when things are going wrong, it can feel like they're going really, really wrong. But there's context you can provide that says, you know, this is a short-term issue or a long-term issue, or really try to underscore the point. And finally, how do we close that feedback loop? So beyond just giving them the physical representation of the players, how do we put processes in place that allows people to see that direct feedback loop? So we have three ways. So the answer is through stories, and then we built 3 pipelines at TinyCo for how we can share stories with everybody at the company. The first story is the Wonder Wall. I love the Wonder Wall. Like, one of my favorite things is when people, first, this is what it is. Whenever players send us something or do something incredible or tell us an amazing story, we print it out and we put it on the wall under a section dedicated to that game. There's a Tiny Zoo section, a Tiny Village section. These are all game titles of ours. There's a Tiny Monsters section. And we build them up and up and up so that there is a reminder that all of these are player done. And it's physical, it's present, and we also purposely choose a high traffic spot. This was our rebellion versus something we saw taking hold in some other customer support teams, where none of us would ever do this, or nobody in this room, because we're all wonderful people that go to OCTribe meetups, but it's a law of the universe that community and customer support departments can start feeling disenfranchised for a company. And when that happens, you start to lash out at the people that are writing into you instead. And when you do that, somebody has the idea, and the idea happens all the time. Let's put up a wall of shame. Let's print out all of those ridiculous emails that we get, and let's put it up there so that we can laugh at them because players are silly. Never do that. Please, please, please never do that. Because if you don't stick up for your players, the company is going to queue off of that. We have a rule at TinyCo that the players are never, ever, ever the butt of the joke. We'll get into this later too, but that when you're sharing stories, the story, like every once in a while somebody might act ridiculous, but that doesn't need to be shared. Like that needs additional context. And if you belittle the players, everybody else in the company is going to do it too. So instead, we do the opposite. We celebrate at every opportunity. We do this through some specific mantras like delighting one person a day. We try to tell ourselves, all right, we're answering a lot of customer support email, we're doing a lot of comments, so let's make sure that we pause and delight at least one person, either by taking a little bit more time to answer their support tickets or trying to set up a contest that will do so. Of course, you don't have to delight just one person. If you have the ability to delight 200 across the day, go for it. But this does 2 things of making sure that we do pause and don't just get into an automatic mode, and also that we slow down, but also that we don't try to do such high-touch help on an individual basis, that then we can't spread that to enough people. So helping at least one person a day really helps us fill the wonder wall, because then they start reciprocating. Then they start reaching out to other players, or they send us stories. It's that one there where you see two faces. That's a player saying, you know, I look a lot like Mervin from Tiny Castle. We affectionately call that our first cosplay, even though he's not actually wearing any costume in there. And then if you're continuing to build that, you can get the community in on it too. This started with a Facebook post. So we generate most of our community work on Facebook rather than forums, because that's generally where our audience is. We do that through a combination of Facebook pages and Facebook groups for the more highly engaged people. And one day, somebody posted, my 3-year-old, Tina, had to go through speech therapy because she couldn't talk. And anything we did wasn't working. Since my kids and myself, have started playing the game, she has started to say the names of the monsters, and it gets us really excited when she plays it. And she went on to talk about how this was the only thing that worked. She was playing Tiny Monsters, and then her daughter started saying fire and air, and started putting together what all of these speeches meant. So we loved that. We shared it with the company, but then we shared it with the players, and they took it and ran with it. They said, let's make a book. Let's put together a picture book that is A is for Air Monster and Aquavale 2, B is for Bayou and his monster crew. This is entirely written by players, it's drawn by players, and then it's colored by players, by probably 6 or 7 of them over time. I do wish they would finish it. But I love what they've done so far, and we made sure to print out every page so that people could walk by. And this is actually the main column that people stop saying, what is that? Did we make that? Another tool we'll use is use the community to provide gifts to the company. And this gets into knowing really well what the purpose of your contests are. Because we ran a contest that said, send us a birthday card for TinyZoo's first birthday. And this is, as an engagement tool, we didn't have very high expectations for it, partly because we incentivized it. There was a prize for the contest for everybody that sent it in. And on the one hand, that feels a little bit, well, it is buying your own birthday cards and then mailing it to yourself. But that wasn't the goal. What we wanted was to provide a lasting and physical gift to the company that then we said we want to plaster an entire wall with cards from our players to TinyCo. And we ended up doing 3 different contests, 2 for Christmas, 1 for a birthday, across 3 different games. And they're up there to this day, where when new people join TinyCo, they're saying, why is there a wall that is completely covered with cards? And then they see it's addressed by people with tiny IDs and names and stories. And eventually, we turned this into a full Wonder hallway. And also made sure that the community team was sitting right next to it. That gets into make sure your community team is in a high traffic spot, because it's easy to forget about them, and it creates a high chance for serendipitous conversations. That you see a product manager walking down and saying, I need something from you. We need to fix this bug. And that happened. We made sure that we were sitting right next to the kitchen as well. We said, it's TinyZoo's first birthday. We're having a yay, we love TinyZoo, we love you. And also, for this one, we said, send us a postcard or a birthday card, and that the first 50 postcards we received would receive premium in-game currency. It is an advantage that online games have, is you have something that players do like, or that you're able to give this premium currency. But it's a specific tool, because if you give premium currency, that is an extrinsic reward. And so players value it a little less. It's better to have, say, swag or gifts from the company itself, or abilities that you can, say, give them an in-game item. But if you need volume, and we knew we wanted a lot of birthday cards, the best way to get a high volume of entries is through an extrinsic reward. And so with that framing, framing is the most important thing that we do. Framing is, I guess broadly, it's taking a situation and it's spin, but not malicious. Like spin has this negative connotation. Whenever anybody says, Matt, you're good at spinning things, no, it's reframing, which itself, I guess, is spin, but we're not going to worry about that. And there's no point where we have to remember this more than with players are passionate. Players are passionate is our frame for angry players. And it's very, very easy to discount that. And since we're in customer support all day, or not all day, but for much of the day, we are exposed to players that can get very, very upset. And the most important thing that we remember is that it's because they love the product. They're not angry at you, even if they say that they're angry at you. They're angry because this product, this game, is a part of their daily routine and something that they've come to really love and count on. And no matter what they say, it's not just that you can't take it personally, it's that it's not personal, it's not directed at that. And if you just let that go over your shoulder and then actually try to tackle the core of their issue, you learn their story and you start to empathize and you see all the context that's around it. And this was illustrated with a very specific ticket that I'm never going to forget, that Taman's on my team, sitting right there, so everybody should make her feel embarrassed. I came to this ticket later when we were looking for stories to share with the company, and she was working with this player this player loved us. She had been playing for forever. She had a really high-level zoo, and I have never seen more hateful language in a support ticket. And the weird thing about it was it kept coming, that Taman was very patient. She kept on helping her and kept on addressing her issue, but the ticket she kept on replying to the ticket and kept on saying these very angry things. It was ultimately about expansions in TinyZoo and trying to make her zoo bigger, and she was no longer able to. But Taman did great. And she listened, and then after giving it several credits and trying to address the issue, we heard one day, not from Marge. Marge was the person writing in the support ticket. We heard from Marge's son, John. And John said, Taman, thank you so much for helping my mom. I just wanted to let you know that she's currently in the hospital undergoing surgery. And she had mentioned before that she was sick. But people who work in games hear that a lot. And it's not meant to be an excuse, but it's just a story, it's context. And this is something that people really identify with, and it might be a massive thing that's going on in their life. And when you have this massive thing that's hanging over you, you turn to games, or you turn to other things, like anything that can put your mind at ease, basket weaving, for instance. And if that doesn't work, then that takes that security away from you. And we just make sure to always refer back to this ticket and think about John, because John said that he talked about how important the game was, and then he kept on in a very patient way asking more about this specific support issue, and said, if you take care of it for my mom while she's recovering, it would really mean a lot to me, and it would mean a lot to her. And so we'll come back to Marge. But our next story venue is the nitty-gritty part, and it's feedback, specifically feedback reports. This is where we send an email to the company based on the game and about everything that we learned that week. And they suck. They are so not fun to write. They take hours. It requires a ton of research. You're never quite sure how many people are reading them, even though you send it to the whole game team. And they're absolutely important. They are one of the most important things that we do. And that's because it's structured thinking. You're committing to yourself that you're going to set aside 3 hours a week to organize your thoughts about your community. You're going to go back through, maybe you document it throughout the week. Maybe you're like me and you save it until the end and then spend 6 hours on the report instead because you're trying to find everything. But you're doing the research to then develop a thesis about what happened that week and getting the metrics and details to really defend that thesis to the company. And the way that you frame it matters a lot, and if you add stories to it, that's one of the ways to help it get read. Another trick that we learned was have good email subject headers. If you have something that is, I don't have one offhand. This breaks my heart. But if you have something that's really colorful, like why the cat stole the paintbrush, people are more likely to click on that, read the first line, get through it, and at least look for the story that you put in there, as opposed to the original subject headers that we were learning, which is Community Feedback Report for August 12th, 2012. How you present it is important. As with never making players the butt of the joke, the language that you use, it sends subconsciously and sometimes consciously indicators to the rest of the company about how they should treat your feedback. Avoid incendiary language. Don't say players are coming at us with torches and pitchforks, or even players hate us or players hate the change. Instead, you have to step back a little bit and treat it like a journalist. You have to just say, we received 30% more support tickets than normal and about this issue, and also everything that we post on Facebook goes off topic. Like, these are clear indicators that you can measure against other things, and in trying to step back from that incendiary language, it again has you think about it and try to present what it really is. Because when a product manager hears, oh my God, they're so angry, that doesn't really mean anything to them, and it actually makes it easier for them to turn it out and discount the information. Likewise, look out for words like many, most, or some. Anytime that you're saying we received a lot of email or there's a ton of posts on Facebook, if that was on Wikipedia, it would say citation needed. Use those as indicators that you probably need to go back and do a bit more research about, is it actually a big issue? And sometimes you'll find that it's not. You'll say, like, this is really rough today, but it's no higher or lower than it was a week ago in terms of total volume, and maybe that indicates that it'll pass. Or maybe it is actually 600% larger, and if you don't change something soon, the whole company will fold. But if you go back for details, you'll be able to prove that case much, much easier. Include a TLDR. Some prefer to call it an executive summary. And keep to a regular schedule, because if the moment that you start missing a feedback report without letting everybody know, you're signaling to the company that it's not important, and they'll believe you. And a few more points for that. I strongly recommend studying the art of presenting information. Nate Silver's blog, 538, is always fantastic about this. Reading even something like Moneyball, but where somebody's talking about the inherent heuristics and biases that go into the presentation of information. It completely changes the way that you look at problems. Ideas of looking at sample sizes and how is this sample possibly not what we need. Like, in the end, if we're presenting feedback from the forums, we can't say players like or dislike this change. You can only say forum users like or dislike this change, and that changes how you go about it. Find every bit of quantitative data that you can. Sometimes this means doing research, looking at things like you have to invent your own metrics sometimes and find your own relationships. And I can't tell what those are for different companies, but if you look at things like player traffic versus forum traffic, there might be interesting things there. Present trade-offs, because if you say, if we do this, this happens. If we do that, that happens. That makes it a choice. Somebody in charge of a game can come at that and say yes, no, or even come up with another idea. If you instead say, this is a problem, and just leave it at that, they'll just say, no, it's not. And then they'll leave it at that. And qualitative data is still data. Qualitative is also a really good framing when you're sharing a story from the community, because if you say, I have qualitative information about this, that means a lot more to a product person than I heard from somebody in the community. And so getting back to Marge for a little bit, what we learned from that one was the expansions in TinyZoo, and that this was a really big pain point. We love looking at pain points as data points because it indicates where we should look to improve the game, but it also cannot be taken just at face value. Because when a player says, I'm out of room, what they're really saying is, I want more to do. So if you ask them how to fix a game, they'll say, add more expansions. Like, just why don't you just add more expansions? This will fix everything. But that's not, like, maybe you can't add more expansions, and maybe if you did add more expansions, they just fill those up anyways. It's just the circle of life. There's always going to be more levels in the game that you want to do. Instead, like, what is the actual pain point that they're frustrated about? It's because maybe they can't see their entire collection on the screen at any given time. So we dug all of this from Marge's story, and what really struck me as I kept on going through this email thread was the empathy that Taman had in it, that she kept on talking to John. And John said, can you help? He asked for a different refund, and then eventually he said, thank you so much. This means so, so much to me, because I know that this game means a lot to my mom. And he shared that he was actually playing the game every day while she was in a coma, because he knew that if she woke up and he had not been collecting those every day, that she would feel heartbroken, that she would really feel like she had lost out on something. Likewise, it meant something to him, because it was a way for him to connect, to enjoy something that his mom was experiencing and that he really cared about. And he ended up sharing that with family and friends, and it was something that they were able to share collectively. We've run into this before at a previous company I was at, where this was another zoo game, this one on Facebook. And that game had a mechanic where if you didn't feed an animal for long enough, it would post to your wall asking to be fed. It was a Facebook game. And we received an email from a player who said, similarly, my mom is in the hospital and is not doing too well. Can you please deactivate the game, because it's really breaking everybody's hearts to see these animals on the Facebook feeds asking for help. And it took us a while to get to the ticket. We just didn't see it. And when we did, we said, absolutely, here's what you can do with Facebook. Here's how it could work if you just give us some information. And this player wrote back to us saying, never mind, because everybody, all of their friends on the Facebook feed had actually started feeding the animals. They'd installed the game because they felt like they were cheering his mom on. And so they completely backtracked and said, please leave it, and we'll let you know if anything changes. And these stories are important. And so we were looking for one more way that we could share stories like this with the company as a whole. And the idea ended up coming from our CEO that sent me an email one day that said, Matt, I would like you to share a story about us wowing our customers every week and share it in front of the whole company. And we had no idea what to call it. And so at the first one, after I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? And I'm freaking out because I get to talk to the whole company about this silly customer service story. And he said, all right, we're going to call it Moment of Zen. Thank you, Daily Show. And we've been doing it for about a year and a half now, and it's amazing. Like, it's a way for us to connect with the entire company. It's a rhythmic reminder of what the community is, and it also forces us to keep on looking for the stories. They're always, always positive, and it can also be, now that's not to say they're always happy, but they always present some kind of uplifting and positive light. And it's not just us wowing the players, it can also be them wowing us. So if they put together some amazing fan art, instead of sending that as an all email to the entire company, you have this fantastic captive audience that you can throw up there, and that you can give it some context and give it some salesmanship and really present this amazing thing that we are all doing on a daily basis. So you do have to fill those. If suddenly you're sharing a story every single week, you have to make sure that you have a story every single week. Because like feedback reports, if you're not regular with it, if you're not consistent, the moment you miss that, they're going to say, all right, it's not important. You have to indicate to them that it's important. So we set up several pipelines. We have several contests that we say, tell us, it's a simple phrase. It's tell us how the game has changed your life. And players write in about it. And even when we're not actually running these contests, we still receive emails from players saying various stories that excites them about the game in ways. And when you frame it like that, as like, how has your life changed since you start playing this game, it opens up a lot of different opportunities for people to share with you. We document as many of them as we can. We hopefully create a backlog. If we're ever light on stories, we can just run a couple more contests and try to gather them. And then that fills the weeks in between when maybe there isn't a particularly spectacular story to tell everybody. You can also create contests that benefit multiple people, like with the postcard contest earlier. So long as you have a specific goal in mind, you can make a contest or an event or a celebration about just about anything. And then you learn from it and build on that in the future. Involving the product teams is fantastic, and intrinsic rewards are especially useful. Here, this is some artwork created by our TinyZoo users, and the artwork ended up going into the game. And since they won that contest, it was a design an animal contest, we printed out the animal that they designed, made a poster of it, sent them a bunch of stickers and swag and a handwritten note, basically telling them how awesome that they are. And once you're opening these up, you just start seeing a ton of stories. Everybody will eventually have a tattoo story in your community if you're a big enough brand. And it's like, mhm. And then people will actually do it. I have one. I actually realized this at, it was at an OCTribe meetup where the Mafia Wars community manager was talking about it. And he shared, he was talking about his community, he shared a slide with a Mafia Wars tattoo, and he was so proud. And I remember thinking, huh, that seems like he's bragging a little bit. But then it happened to TinyCo, and like this is a common thing that happens, that if you are in the business of creating emotional connections with people, either on a brand level or a game level or a person-to-person level, you start seeing these spontaneous, this emergent behavior that people express in a number of very specific ways. One of them is in tattoos, and the other one is in love stories. That eventually, for any game that you, or for any product that you make that connects one person to another person, eventually somebody's going to get married because of your product. It just always happens. Maybe they do it within the game. Maybe you get married in EverQuest, or maybe you travel across the country to do it. For one story that really stood out to me was one where a player wrote into us saying, "I'm from Indonesia, and my husband is from India. And we had a long-distance relationship, but one thing that he always noticed while we were talking was that I would be checking my TinyZoo." So then he downloaded TinyZoo, and it became, even though TinyZoo is not a multiplayer game, it built a social connection between them. Like, it became something, it became an object that they centered a ritual around. And it didn't replace other things. They still talked about life and how their day went, but it was just something that they could mutually share. And she said, he now lives in India, and we still roll over and make sure to check our TinyZoos every morning and talk to each other about it and share it over their morning coffee. I love this image because this is from one of our Tiny Village Power users posted in the Facebook group. And this is an actual card that she made her husband. And she said, she gave this to him. It was on the morning of their anniversary. And he said, "Husband, I hope you know how serious this makes me." But most importantly, you find those human stories that by reaching out every single day and making sure to delight one person a day and keeping this frame, you find them. And we never heard back from Marge, and we never heard back from John. We ultimately did send a teddy bear to them, where Taman worked very hard at this because John said, "Oh, no, you don't need to do that. We're strangers. We're across the ocean." He was in the UK. And he said, "Thank you so much, but it's quite all right. I just feel the need to tell you how my mom is doing. But please don't worry about that." And Taman said, "No, I insist." And then she said, "If you would like this, we at TinyCo are all very invested in the success of your mother, and we want to hear how it goes. And if you just let us know, we'll send you this bear so that it could be there when she wakes up." We did send the bear. We don't know if they got it, but because we never heard back. But we made sure to share that story. We shared that in a moment of Zen about 1.5 years ago. And that's the one that I remember most. Like, we've had stories since then of players passing away in the community, which is another thing that just always happens. I see several people nodding, and it's hard. When you've seen it enough, it becomes equally interesting to see people in the community itself respond to something that is new to them, and that is deeply personal, but also that you've seen before. We had Actually, I'm going to go back one because that's a happy and living family. But we recently had a member named Steve pass away, and this is another Tiny Zoo very active player that he's been playing Tiny Zoo for longer than I've been at TinyCo. Like he outranks me. And he passed away suddenly on the 4th of July, and one of his family members got on and let the Tiny Zoo community know. And they were heartbroken, and they responded with this emergent and powerful way where they all start making designs within their game. And it was rest in peace Steve everywhere. And we shared this with the company as well, and the Tiny Zoo team actually made an in-game item that represented one of his favorite flowers. And it wasn't called the Stevonia or anything. It was the real flower. And it was given away for free to everyone in the game. We didn't say why, because that would be disrespectful. But everybody that knew Steve and that was in the community knew exactly what that meant. And they ended up grabbing as many of them as they could and building their zoos appropriately for the time that it was there. And so I strongly believe that sharing stories like this and that creating feedback and the processes and the conduits and the physical manifestations within the company can change that company. That I see a lot of community managers that are distraught about not having executive buy-in or about trying to find the perfect way to prove ROI. And I think trying to worry about things like ROI and buy-in is, you have to lay the groundwork first. Like once you have these pipelines in place and once you're proving to your company that these things are valuable over and over and over again, that the rest follows. That then you're involved in product decisions and that everybody is reminded every single day that they come in. And my favorite thing that Taman said during that support ticket after he said, no, please don't, we're just somebody in the UK, is he said, John, don't worry about it. We're no longer strangers. And I agree with that if you're doing that daily work and share that with the company because ultimately we're all community. And that's it.
If you guys want to, thank you so much for live tweeting so many of you. I mean, I've seen some tweets from people who are not in the room, including those poor souls, at least 3 who are stuck on that train coming from Burlingame. There's some fire on the Caltrain. And so if you guys want to be really generous, you should tweet out to those folks. I know Mark Siegel's on the train, Emily Friedlander, she just tweeted E_Friedlander, and some other guy from the Meetup. There's some people, so if you guys want to use a hashtag, find out what the hashtag is for that. I don't know that if I don't even know if Caltrain has. They probably have an account, right? A Twitter account, one would assume. But I don't know if there's a hashtag for that specific fire. But anyway, I just think it's really nice that they're following the tweets. So thank you guys for being generous in the room and online. There's some people watching on the live stream. So with that, let's open it up for questions. I'll pass the mic around, and then if somebody could also monitor what's coming in on the tweet stream, tell us who's tweeting in the questions. So anyone in the room, I'll pass the mic. Yes, Heidi.
I will say that I prepared extensively for Randy Farmer's questions. So I'm pretty sure I'll be able to handle this.
He's actually at, he wrote that his daughter got him into the George Takei documentary. That's right. The screening, so he's not going to be here, so you're off the hook. No stress there.
I can handle it.
You can handle him. There is questions as well.
Yeah, I won't be nearly as tough as Randy Farmer, so don't worry.
Someone's got to Somebody's got to throw him under the bus.
But as someone who's also worked in gaming communities a few times, I know what a special breed they can be. What is your answer? Yes, they're passionate. So what is your answer when people say, well, why don't you just fix it? Just curious to see what other community managers do.
So they can hear it on the live stream because it was in the mic, right? Okay. So you can just answer it. You don't have to repeat it.
We try our very best to be honest. And it can be very, very hard to manage that message. Like we try to incorporate what we can from crisis communications and PR for the probably the first guideline is don't repeat the charge. If they say your game is broken, don't say our game's not broken, because that just becomes the headline, so to speak. Everybody says TinyCo says the game's not broken. What a bunch of fools. But rather, it still goes back to context. I strongly believe that if we do everything we can to at least explain our thinking behind something, that then it makes the agreements and disagreements about our thinking. And so the example that most tech companies run into is when server problems happen. And from a consumer perspective, it doesn't matter what those problems are. Like, you need to get those fixed. But from a consumer perspective, it's always, why don't you just buy more servers? Or why don't you just hire more people? And that might not be the problem. It might be that there's a design flaw in the code, or it might be because the game is super, super popular. Like, there could be any number of reasons that is not that easy a fix. And so if we tell them, first it's honest, saying this is probably not going to get fixed, or it might be some time, or we're working as hard as we can to fix it, and then explaining all of the thinking that leads to us in that process. And so by focusing on the process instead of the problem, it shifts the focus away from it.
That's a good answer. And a good question. Other questions? Yes.
You say that like community at your company is customer service and social media and community building. How on earth do you have time to do all that? Or is it because you have specialists in each, like for your big team, or how does that work, I guess?
It's a workflow question. Nice eyewear. Welcome.
So we actually only have 3 people, including me.
We complain.
And we all do all of it. And I anticipate that eventually that will change, that as a team grows or shrinks, that those roles change. You don't need a 30-person team of everybody doing of everybody being full stack specialists, so to speak. But at this time, we have very specific goals in mind for it. That's one of the reasons that it took us a very long time to get to forums, because forums are a ton of work for a relatively little return compared to other things that you could be spending your time on. Now, for some games, they're necessary. We recently started releasing some more general gaming audience games that people expect forums for, and for those, forums are incredibly valuable. But for our more social and casual ones, we just said, all right, we have this many hours per week. We want to, we should apply those hours as this and this and this with these specific goals. So we also rigorously manage our service level agreements, that instead of saying everything has to be done all the time, we say what is the area that we can most impact the company, while also giving help to as many people as we can, and in particular people that need it. So if you're receiving 3 million tickets a day, which I'm sure everybody does, if you're receiving, say, 3 million tickets a day, and 1 million of those are about the same issue, it doesn't actually benefit you to hire more people to answer those tickets, whereas instead you should be looking at an automation that can help more. It's something from the other day is that automation helps us be human, and that by automating those and creating processes and Facebook posts that can go out to everybody, or in-game FAQs that can get that answer, it helps significantly. It's also things like, we found that we want everybody that needs to write into customer support to be able to, but no more than that. And so that required a little bit of moving for the customer support link, because we were getting basic gameplay questions that are answered very, very visibly. And that's okay, people are busy. When you have a question, you want to answer as soon as possible. But by moving it to the bottom of the table of the contents instead of the top, it dramatically increased the quality of questions that we were getting. And the last one is to focus really hard on the hiring process, that it's very, very difficult to hire people that are problem solvers instead of task doers, but that if you gear your hiring process around finding people that solve problems, then the world opens up to you as a team.
Somebody's got to tweet that, because I'm not carrying my phone, but somebody tweet that. That is really smart. That's a great quote, and it's really smart. Thanks. Other questions? I love that, by the way. Hiring. Oh, so sweet. Ravi's got a question.
A fantastic presentation, Matt. Yeah. Just want to take your perspective and if you could share. You were talking about mostly about the qualitative side, and you also mentioned the comments from your operations director. Just wondering what kind of qualitative analytics you do, what is the KPIs you follow, and how do you defend your ROI?
ROI, return on investment, KPIs are key, something indicators, performance indicators. How do you basically, what he's saying is how do you prove what you're doing with data to the people who care about that stuff?
We are the people that care about it. So all of these, so if you're trying to make a thesis, if you're trying to prove a point about the product, you have to show your work. And something that we pay a lot of attention to and that we very consciously pay a lot of attention to is how we can find a metric that illustrates what we're talking about. Because if there, and that's very different from, like, I'm not saying go out and make up a metric that has nothing to do with anything. Like, it needs to be real, and if you can't find one, it's probably a mistaken assumption. Examples, one of my favorites is Off Topic, where as a very specific example, we do free-to-play games. All of our games are free. All of our games also have premium currency and premium things that people can buy. There tends to be different groups of people that enjoy both of these tiers. We love all of them. We love free players. We love payers because they allow us to do this job that we love. But whenever we post to Facebook about a premium animal, the comments are livid. And when we started presenting that, like, it puts the product people in an awkward spot because we're saying anytime you try to charge money for something, people get upset. And we realize it's not really about that. They're upset because they want the animal. Like, this is actually a good thing that they're feeling so passionate about it. And like, the takeaway is not to anger your user base, but it's that there is certain amount of responses that indicate passion. And we saw that from the comments would all just be in this one single thread because the post is going out to the Facebook feed. And that's ultimately just the law of nature. Now, when we know we're in trouble is when every single post that we do is about the same issue. So if we make a change to the game and then we post about a new animal and every comment is about this completely unrelated thing, and then the wall is about all of these unrelated things, and then the forums are filled with, no matter how much merging we do with a bunch of different threads, that lack of a single signal is actually the signal, because it means that this unpopular change is actually top of mind for the entire player base.
So how do you report that, your KPIs and ROI and all that? How do you report it back?
We compare it to the community at rest. So we're so most of our specific metrics do come from the customer support side. We haven't looked yet into sentiment analysis because we can just eyeball that, where we can say 10 out of 12 posts in the last 12 hours are negative and about this issue. That sentiment analysis becomes more important as the Facebook pages become larger. And then the main thing that we look at is customer support tickets that then we have been rigorously tagging throughout the response process. So every single response that we have is coupled with a tag about that issue, so that 1 year from now, I can go back and say, the last time we did this feature, we received a 130% increase in tickets about this issue. And then they can either say, we will do that or we won't do that. We don't have a specific ROI metric because we embed our community people specifically with the product. We consider community part of the product department. So ultimately, the ROI is the product itself, and either it's doing well or it's not, and community's involved in trying to get those metrics up.
I have a follow-up question on that, which is how often are you writing your reports, and in what format? Are you using like a tool, like, you know, Hootsuite generates them, or community or social grow, they generate them for you? Are you doing it yourself? How often? How are you writing?
We've toyed with email. We've toyed with other. Oh, yeah. Susan was asking how often we write them and what tools do we use for feedback reports. And the frequency depends on the game. So the frequency of a feedback report is tied to the service level agreement, where if it's a new game, where the developers actively want feedback so that they can determine what course to take the game, we might do it 3, 4, or 5 times a week. If as the game reaches maturity, we scale that down a little bit, and eventually it can be once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, or eventually maybe it's just checking in whenever as something for the people that are still working on that game. So, and it's always email format. We've toyed with some other tools for that, but we've toyed with like PowerPoint presentations as well, but this one aside, nobody likes to click through PowerPoint presentations. And so we end up doing it in essay format via email once a week, and it's always sent to the entire game team. There was some divisiveness about that because there's a question of, do you send it to just the product managers, just the sole, like the lead owner, or do you send it to the entire team? Because there might be negative things in there. And we found that ultimately this was a great way for, sometimes this is the only thing that the artists heard about the game. And so we can include all of that. If players were unhappy about something, we would be honest with them, we would tell them, but we would also make sure to include something that reminds the artists that there are players that are responding positively to their game.
Smart guy. Yeah, Hubert. And I want to just comment on that. I think that your method of just, I guess somebody's call. I think someone may be at the door. I heard the phone ring, maybe not. Even though the phone buzzer isn't working right now. I just wanted to say that I agree with you that making the reporting more casual and more frequent is more effective. Like if it becomes this big monster that you have to produce, it's a drag for you, it's not current, and nobody reads it. So I totally echo that philosophy.
Hey Matt, thanks for this awesome presentation. I'm looking forward to getting a PowerPoint, and I hope to take what I've learned today and also your PowerPoint and then share with the rest of the game teams back at Games Campus. Oh, that's right. So my question is that, we look at community, I think, through this perspective as being homogenous. I'm wondering what's your take on segmenting the community, pulling out the whales, and then treating them differently compared to the rest of the minnows? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I knew it. So he's here in spirit. So we really, really don't view communities as homogenous. If I had a whole nother presentation, it would be titled "A Community as an Ecosystem." And that's what allows us to be very spry, because for one game, there's going to be a Facebook page, a wiki, maybe a fan-made forum, fan-made blogs, and we want to be connected to all of those. And then ultimately, I say the word ultimately a lot. I was wondering what that word would be. Like, I wonder what word I'll repeat over and over again. I'm glad to know this now. But ultimately, they introduce each other to you. They introduce you to other power users. And we love the phrase case-by-case basis, just because it gives us the liberty to use common sense when addressing issues. That if somebody is acting really, really reprehensibly or obviously spam, we can ban them without notice, or without prior notice. Or if somebody is a longstanding member, then we can give them a verbal warning. We prefer to go on the side of the verbal warning, but just the case-by-case basis lets us be honest about that there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all rule. We do look at things like when we're looking at our SLAs, we do try to take various things into consideration, one of which is if you have spent money in a game, you're in the minority, and that is what allows us to keep our lights on. But very specifically, it's also if you've spent money in the game and you're asking us about not having received that, we need to answer that really fast. Like if I spend money in an app and then it's not immediately delivered, or if something happens that loses that, I immediately quit that. And if you start losing all of your payers, you just don't have a game anymore. So there are certain realities that allows that segmenting to be more effective in your customer service, and then look for ways to expand that out to the community as a whole.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and then I want to let you guys schmooze and eat all the food so I don't have to carry it somewhere. And so is there questions online? Are there any questions from online? Has anyone asked any? I know, Matt is super cool. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Anyone, last question in the room? Nope, I'm not going to force you. Last chance, last call. Okay, have fun, hang out, drink, eat, be merry. See you guys in November. If you haven't already signed up, meetup.com/OCTribe. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Matt.